This conference will now be recorded.
So welcome to Splunk for performance testers. So basically, right, what we will be discussing now, we will be discussing the queries that are required for a performance tester. Okay, like normally, like you would be executing the performance. Suppose that you can prepare some charts and all those. Like not only this, you can do some like development activities also. You can prepare the dashboards and all those. Okay, so first we will start like what is Splunk. Okay, like I think like you, if you are attending this session, you might have already used the Splunk, right? So you might have heard about Splunk. So what do you know about Splunk? You can
It's a
let
log
it in.
monitor.
Yeah. So
It's a
it's
log
a log.
monitoring tool.
Yeah, correct. So basically, like people know like Splunk is a log monitoring tool. Okay. So that is in the past. Like so, if you see the products over here, no. If you see this is a Splunk site. When I search into the products, right, you will be having. So it is divided into three types. One is the platform, security, and observability. Okay, so Splunk has basically three types of products. One is the platform, like now you told, right, log monitoring tool that comes under the platform. Okay, so in this there are two variants. One is the cloud variant and other is the enterprise, Splunk enterprise. Okay, so cloud variant is something like Splunk will manage that infrastructure. Let's assume like you are running some project. Okay, so it will be generating some logs in your multiple environments like prod and non-prod environments. Basically, so if it is not a financial institution, if the data is not sensitive, so what people may say like I don't want to maintain the infrastructure of the Splunk. Okay, so then what we can do, right, we can go with the Splunk cloud platform where we will be purchasing the license and they will own the infrastructure. Okay, just will push the logs to the Splunk. Okay, the other variant is the Splunk enterprise variant. Splunk enterprise variant is something like we will get the Splunk package and we will install in our infrastructure, means on our data centers. Okay, so it will be in-house, like all the applications like that are being produced in your environments will be sent to the Splunk enterprise. So this is related to this platform. Okay, and there is one more thing called as security. In security, what we have, right, have you heard about SIEM? Have you heard about SIEM? Okay, I will explain like what is SIEM and all those. So Splunk is widely used in security. Okay, and there is something like observability. Observability, right, you have AppDynamics, you have Dynatrace, right? The same thing, Splunk is also having the log monitoring sorry, this like app monitoring capabilities. Got it? So Splunk has three products. Basically in our class, right, we will be discussing about this platform. In this we will be discussing about the enterprise. Like here both are same, the queries and everything would be same. Got it till now? Clear? So observability is nothing but your AppDynamics, Dynatrace, that is a competitor for that one. So Splunk has capabilities to monitor the logs as well your metrics of the infrastructure and the applications that were installed. Got it? Okay. Hope it is clear. So what is the challenge now? Why we are going with Splunk? Any idea? I'm getting some noise. Can you move? Why we are going with Splunk? Any idea? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
So why we are like going with Splunk? Why we need Splunk? Okay, I will explain. So in our earlier days, no, we are all having monolithic applications. So in earlier days, okay, so we will be having one server. Okay, in that server we will be having application server, okay, middleware and the backend, and everything is deployed on the same server, right? But now what's happening? Now we are a distributed architecture. Now we are doing the horizontal scaling. Like previously, right, it was something more of a vertical scaling. Okay, some 10, 12 years back before cloud era. Now what's happening? Like we are moving to like containers. Okay, we are moving to like auto scaling and all those, and we are having these microservices. Due to which, what's happened, right? We are having n number of sources which generate the logs. Let's assume one example. Okay, we'll take Amazon.com. Okay, if I deploy my web server, app server, and everything DB server in the same thing, no, if there is any transaction is getting failed, I can easily log into the server, okay, and I can troubleshoot and I can fix the issue, right? But let's assume I'm having some 20 to 30 microservices that are being run for like search. Okay, I'm getting some noise. Yeah, so let's assume I'm having microservices, and each microservices is sending like generating some logs. Okay, now it's like if there is some transaction that gets failed, uh, it will be difficult to track. Okay, as well as there are some 4 or 5 servers. Okay, let's assume like there is one app server here, one, two, three, four app servers. Okay, and which will be connected to the DB server. Okay, now one of the transaction gets failed. Okay, now it will be difficult for me to log in to every server and check. Instead of that, right, what we are doing, right, we will send these logs, okay, whatever are getting generated to a separate system. Okay, so what I will do now, what I will do, right, I will be sending the logs to something like one software, some centralized location. Okay, and from this centralized location I will be fetching the logs. Okay, you know the problems of this log retention, right? We can't store more than last 10 logs. Okay, last 5 logs based on the design. So once the time passes, as the day progresses, right, the old logs will be deleted. So let's assume there is some breach in the company. Okay, after 1 week only I have seen that issue. So the my logs will be deleted in normal case. So the solution would be something like I will be shipping all the logs to the, as soon as they get generated, no, I will be shipping all the logs to the some centralized location. Okay, and from here I will be fetching the data based on the time filter. Okay, this storing this all the logs and all, no, that is the Splunk is the software which will collect the data from multiple sources and store with it, and we can analyze the data by writing some queries. Hope it is clear, no, what is Splunk. So but in a typical organization, what will happen, you will get the logs from thousands of servers. Okay, and like there are thousands of servers, and each server will generate some data. Okay, and we have to monitor the large amounts of data that is coming from all these servers. Okay, so what is machine data? Like machine data is something like that is generated by the machine. Okay, it can be in different forms. It can be the logs, or if you see some network element. Okay, let's take some router, it will generate some data. Let's assume like there are something like radio frequency or IoT devices, they will generate the data. So basically Splunk has capability to put all the data to some centralized location. Okay, so I will, before going this, right, I will this one. So what is Splunk basically? Splunk is a software that is used to collect, search, and analyze and visualize the machine generated data. Okay, so the, as I mentioned, the machine generated data can be logs. Okay, or it can be something like the router output, or it can be something like a firewall stuff. Okay, or IoT devices. So what Splunk monitors? Basically, Splunk can monitor everything. Okay, irrespective of whether it is an application server or anything. Okay, it can get the data from Windows or Linux machines. It can pull the data from the Active Directory. Okay, there are something like radio frequency, app servers, IoT devices, sensors. Okay, databases, mainframes data, email, networks. Basically, right, if you are, let's assume if someone is running some organization, okay, whatever the servers or whatever the infrastructure they has, they can pull all the data into the Splunk. That is the capability, and the that's why the Splunk is more powerful. Any doubts? Any doubts still here? Clear? You understood what is Splunk
Yeah,
basically?
yeah, we understood.
So we'll go through like what will be discussed. Okay, so basically like who can enroll this, who can enroll for this course? Okay, the thing is like anyone. Okay, Splunk will be used by multiple people. In simple, if I want to say, right, it is something like a Excel in an organization. Okay, so there will be different roles like developers. Developer will need Splunk for troubleshooting or looking into the logs. Even the testers. Okay, you already know these two things. Developers and testers will need Splunk. IT operations guy. Okay, now my organization is having some 2000 servers. Okay, out of which there are some faulty servers where I have to log in. Okay, out of some 1000 servers, there are some 10 servers which are generate where the transaction is getting failure. Okay, or there is some issue with that. A IT operations guy, in normal case, it is difficult for him to track from which source we are getting errors or there is some issue. If I have this Splunk and there is some centralized location where the where he can see the data, right, it will be easy for him to log in. Okay, IT monitoring. Okay, as I mentioned, Splunk can monitor anything. Okay, it can monitor your JVM metrics. It can monitor your like builds, like your Jenkins you will have, right, or your Zira, anything basically. So, or your app metrics. It can be integrated to your I mean like service now. Like Jenkins, you will be running the jobs over time, right? My manager asked me like over a period of 1 month, how many builds got triggered, how many builds are successful, and how many builds are failed, and he want to know like the trend of builds passed versus builds failed over 1 month or 1 year. Got it? With Jenkins, you can't do that job. You can just click the job, but here we can get that metrics as well. Got it? So, and you like even the IT support guy also will use the Splunk for checking the servers. And business analyst. Okay, there will be something like a business analyst. No, why business analyst will need Splunk? Let's assume you are asking for the non-functional requirements. So from where he will get the non-functional requirements? Basically, he has to analyze the production data, right? So by logging into the Splunk, he will be he should be able to generate the trend, like let's assume on a Thanksgiving day or an like big billion day. Okay, so they want to see the last year's trend, like what is the number of orders placed. Okay, and orders placed, or like something like search we will be doing, no payments. So they want to see the trend, like how many transactions happened, or they want to know the response times. Okay, because there is something like a next big billion day will be falling in 2 months or something, so we are making our infrastructure ready. So the old things, old metrics will be like collected from the Splunk by the business analyst. Okay, so basically if you learn a Splunk, there are three different career opportunities. Okay, one is like Splunk developer, Splunk admin, and Splunk architect. Okay, so Splunk admin is someone who will be deploying, who will be managing your Splunk. I told you, no, Splunk can connect to anything. It can connect to databases, it can connect to your Jenkins, it can connect to your Jira, your application servers, Windows servers, or even in application servers Tomcat, you have like JBoss and all, right? It can be connected to everything. So his job is to configure the Splunk to that particular agent, whatever. Okay, so his job is to, like let's assume the source, whatever we say, right? His job is to configure that one. Splunk architecture is like more complicated than your application architecture. Okay, there are like multiple. When I talk about Splunk, it is not only one instance. You will be having something like, based on the like size it collects, no, it can vary from 10 instance to 100 instances also. Okay, so we'll discuss that in detail. Okay, so what we will learn as part of this course? So we'll learn like what is Splunk. Okay, and why we are using Splunk and different products. Okay, we'll understand the architecture. So if I tell the architecture, no, if I go to this slide. Okay, Splunk, this is the Splunk architecture basically. So for whatever in office, right, whatever you are accessing is only this component, search head. Okay, so it has other components as well. Okay, it will be having something like indexer. Okay, here you will be having something like indexer. Okay, you will be having something like a universal forwarder. Okay, you will be having heavy forwarder. So these are responsible for like universal forwarder and heavy forwarder, right? These are forwarders, these are the agents basically. Okay, these are responsible for shipping your logs from your source machine to the indexer. Got it? So there will be something like deployment server and cluster master and all. So we'll understand the architecture of the Splunk, and they will be opened on some specific ports basically. Okay, so how they connect to each other, no, we will see. So licensing part we will see. Okay, like we'll seeing the installation on Windows. Okay, and we'll see the installation of the Linux. So basically, right, whenever you install the Splunk, no, you can use it for 60 days. Okay, if you, as I mentioned, no, there will be two variants available. So there are two variants, one is the cloud variant and one is the enterprise variant. Okay, if you register for the cloud variant, no, you can use it. The trial version will be available for you for 14 days. Got it? So you can use the Splunk instance for 14 days. After that it will expire. Okay, and if you install the enterprise edition, no, then you can use it for the 60 days. After that what will happen? So advanced features like alerting, okay, there will be some advanced features, those will be disabled. Got it? And if you want to install it again, just delete that directory and install new. That's it. So you can install it for a number of times, not an issue. So we'll okay, so I'll open the Splunk. Okay, just I had installed the Splunk in my local instance. It's running on 133. Unable to get the UI, that's it. Not an issue. Wait a second. It's starting the Splunk, so there is some issue. Okay, I think I have stopped my VM abruptly, so it will work, not an issue. So we'll see like how to install the Splunk, okay, in Windows and Linux. So okay, now we'll have a walkthrough on like what how like walkthrough of the Splunk GUI, okay, and as I mentioned, we can get we can ingest data. Ingest is something like to introduce the data into the Splunk, okay, in multiple ways. Let's assume if you are having something like a Unix server or a Windows server, okay, the ingestion mechanism would be different. Let's assume there is a DB server, okay. So in DB server, I can't install any agent. Agree? It will degrade the performance. Okay. If it is a Jenkins, I can't install any agent in the Jenkins. Like I can't install some client in the agent. If it is a Zira, okay. So what happens, right? There will be like different ways of getting the data into the Splunk. Okay, so we will discuss about those things. So if there will be something, I have mentioned something like Splunk is capable of getting the data from multiple sources. Okay, so I will tell one thing. I had it ready. In short, I will tell you. Let's assume this is my Splunk and these are my servers. Either it can be Windows or Linux. Okay, where your application servers are running. So Splunk has multiple components. Okay, so let's assume this is my Splunk. Okay, in this we will call this component as an indexer. Okay, the indexer job is to collect the data from multiple sources. Let's assume this is my client. Okay, this is my applications Linux machine. Okay, this is my Linux machine, this is my Windows machine. So what I will be doing, right, I will be installing one thing called like universal forwarder. So in your Dynatrace or AppDynamics, let's assume if you want to send some data, or if you want to send the metrics to the server, no, you will be installing some agent, right? You will be installing the client in your application, no, in your server. Either it can be Windows or Linux. In the same way, there is one agent called as universal forwarder. So we have to install the universal forwarder, and we will do some configuration such that it will be sending the logs to the Splunk. Got it? So we'll discuss about this stuff, like how to install the universal forwarder, okay, in Windows and Linux. Got it? So whatever you are where the data is getting actually stored is something like a Splunk indexer. So like that you are having other components as well. Got it? For now, just remember, like, there is some agent that needs to be in your installed in your operating systems. Either it can be Windows or Linux flavors, and that agent is called as universal forwarder. In universal forwarder, you will mention like which type of log sh- should be shipped. Okay, either it can be custom log or a Windows log, or a Linux log like sys log, or your application log. Okay, or you, and there are multiple things there, so you can ship a complete directory as well. Let's assume there is some logs folder, okay, and you want to send only something like abc.log. You can do some configurations in the universal forwarder to send the complete directory or some pattern. There is some directory in that you are having some property files as well as the log files. I want to send only log files. That can be also done. Clear? In this one, you will be having one agent, that is the universal forwarder, which will be shipping the data to the Splunk indexer. Splunk indexer is a component which will collect and store the data from multiple sources. Clear? Till now you understood? Any doubts till here? So some people will be asking, like, what is the difference between the Splunk and AppDynamics? Why we will use Splunk and AppDynamics for monitoring? Any idea? Just what is the difference? Like for for monitoring, right? We will be using AppDynamics as well as the Splunk also, or Dynatrace with Splunk. Why that is done? We can have only AppDynamics, right? Or I can have only Splunk. No, why we are using both?
Splunk will is a log monitoring tool, right? And AppDynamic is like application point of view. Also, we can monitor it. For example, if we need to check any transaction, we can drill down it. But in Splunk, Splunk won't provide that facility to drill down any transaction details and all.
Mhm. Okay, I will give one use case. Okay, so let's assume this is my application. Okay, this is my load balancer, and from my load balancer, no, I'm hitting some app servers. Okay, there are 4 5 app servers, and there are some application servers. Okay, and there is some DB server over here. So now, not normally you will hit here. Okay, you will hit the load balancer, and the load balancer will like randomly send the logs to here. Okay, and it will be sent, either there can be load balancer also here. Okay, I can have my load balancer over here also. Okay, and this will be shipping to this will be sending to the application server or some other component. Let's assume like payments or some other system. There is some DB server over here. Okay, now what are the benefits I will get if I use AppDynamics? If I do with AppDynamics, right, I think you guys know AppDynamics won't track the data for every event that occurs in the, when you are running some test, right, it won't monitor everything. It will take random samples. If you are sending some 10,000 transactions in 1 minute, either it will like sample some 1,000 to 2,000. It won't track everything. Correct? If you put everything, there will be overhead on the system. Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
So, and there is one particular, I will tell one use case. Okay, there is some particular use case, like this is a, this is having some issue. this node is having some issue, out of which whenever you run some 10,000 transactions, no, in 5 minutes or 1 minute, some 1,000 are failing. Okay, some 1,000 are failing. In AppDynamics or Dynatrace, what you will do, right? You will try to, like, you will get the data, you will get that call paths and all those, but let's assume there is one case which I want to find. I want to find the response times of particular application servers. This cluster is there, no? This cluster. I want to find the response times of this particular cluster. I want to find the time taken in this cluster, average response times in particular node or in the complete stuff. Okay, this is processing, this node is processing in 100 milliseconds. This is processing 100. This is taking some 700 milliseconds. This is processing 100. I can prepare a dashboard to capture the data at this node level also. Got it? So immediately whenever I run a test, and if I have the dashboard ready to monitor this one, no, I can directly see here these three nodes are having like higher lower response time, but this is having some 700 milliseconds. Or let's assume there is some load distribution to these nodes, right? I don't know, there is some issue with the fi. It is sending 10% traffic, 10% traffic to these particular nodes, 10 10 10, and this node is there, no, it, it is being sent with 70% traffic due to some issue with the load balancer or something. So those things can't be identified with AppDynamics. Agree?
Yes, yes.
So to avoid that, right, we will be using the Splunk. So basically, right, even if I have AppDynamics, if this node is faulty, if there is some issue with the load balancer, I can't troubleshoot that issue. Agree? Okay, you will be having, because, and one more thing, right? Whenever this AppDynamics runs, no, there will be something like the JVM response time you will be getting, right? Whatever that is in the servlets or whatever, right? You will be having the application response time. But in log, I know when the transaction triggered and when the transaction ends. That is the actual response time. Yes or no? The one which is getting displayed in that AppDynamics, okay, it may be belonging to one particular server or some other stuff. That is not accurately the response time. So I might be having like multiple servlets which will be used for multiple operations. No, agree?
Yeah. So I have one question with.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So I am little bit confused. The differentiate between Dynatrace and Splunk, and why
Ah,
are using
Splunk,
Dynatrace and Splunk in the current industry trend. So
that's what.
here from your explanation, you are saying that if anything is happen on node level, so in Dynatrace we are capturing the all the response, but we are not
And hits per
identifying the
second.
exact.
So it depends actually. I can't say one scenario. Okay, just I have given one scenario, right? So let's assume whenever the event occurs, no, you know what is event, no? Whenever the event occurs for a transaction, okay, first we will have something like a start transaction, and end we will have the, whenever the transaction is completed, right, you will be having the end transaction. The time interval between those two, okay, will be the actual thing. So basically, right, whenever you use Splunk, like, you can capture the exact time.
Okay. And
Okay,
what about Dynatrace?
Dynatrace, right, you will be monitoring the JVM level. So
JVM.
I think, like, servlets, no, there will be some different types of servlets you might have seen. So in your app monitoring, so there will be, like, if you have seen, there will be servlets which will be spinned for each and every microservices or anything, or some other configuration, one app. So let's assume amazon.com is there. For let's assume they have configured for shopping, they have configured some separated threads, okay, in separate servlet. If they are using some electronics, there is a separate servlet, so you will be having two response times. Have you seen that?
Yeah, we are
Two
getting
threads you will
two
be seeing.
response.
So
Yes.
in that it is difficult for you, right? You understood? No, it is one may be performing better, one may be performing low. Okay, so you will be getting confused, like uh, what to take, right? Okay, we'll drill down, like
Yeah.
we'll go in the, I don't want to confuse in the first itself, but so
Okay.
those things can be monitored. Okay, so I will show one. Let me log in. One second. Okay, I will take you through some dashboard which I have created. Maybe you'll understand the difference. Okay, this is one of the dashboard which I have created. Okay, so let's assume there is something like you are running some amazon.com. In that you are having something like add to cart, change quality, purchase, remove, and view the item. So these are the multiple use cases that happens. So in my particular 1 hour, when you run your Jmeter or your LoadRunner suite, there will be some transactions that are completed, right? Right? So you may run some
Yeah.
transactions. In Splunk, I can map that. I can prepare a dashboard saying like I have triggered these many in that particular 1 hour. Change quality, I have done these many transactions. Okay, if there are any failure events, I can track like this. So these are these many failures. Now you understood, no? The difference in AppDynamics, you can't get this metric, no?
Yeah. And now understand.
Now you saw here there is one more dashboard. So in this dashboard, there is something like status code. Okay, there is something like status code. Okay, in this
Yeah.
status code, I for this operation, okay, add to cart operation, I want to know the exact errors and what is the count. How many are 400? How many are 404? So this I will get. Let's assume we are getting some 404 more between the test. Your transaction is failing, okay, from your load runner your suit is failing with some 3% errors or something, but as a developer or a performance tester, I have to monitor the system and analyze like how many errors are there. So how
Yeah.
many, like between your two tests, in one test I may, ultimately will get failure, okay, but the when you find the root cause, no, sometimes you are getting 403, sometimes you are getting 503. As a developer, right, there is a lot of difference between 404 and 503, right?
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
And even if it is a 400, so 400 can be ignored, it is a bad request. So those things we can get like this. You can track something like this is the broken chart basically. So I forgot to add these fields basically, right? You will be having these things here itself. This is a broken one, so I can get something like this. 200s how many? Okay, okay, you can display the, if there are any particular events, okay, which are failing, you can display that in the chart itself. In the same dashboard, if there is any 503 or 403, I can put it in the dashboard itself so that I can readily see. So see, there is one more dashboard. Okay, here I am having status code. I have mapped the status codes versus this stuff. Add to chart, change quality, purchase, remove. Okay, so if I want to see 505 errors, If I want to see the errors, okay, this is the actually this is the total basically. Okay, this is the total. Okay, now I can see in my system there are more number of 406 and 408. These three 400 series is more than this one. So like that I can analyze. Got it. For add to cart, okay, if you see this, if you analyze this add to cart, 505 or more. Okay, if I go to change quantity, okay, 503 or more. Sorry, just a small correction. So I have put it in the descending order. In add to cart functionality, minor errors are caused by 404 error. Major errors are caused by this 5k are caused by the 406 error. Okay, and the trend is bit different here. Here I am having change quantity. I am having 503 error code more. So like that you can prepare the dash. These are the sample dashboards actually. So you can prepare this pictorial stuff. Hope you understood, no? What is the
Yeah,
difference? So further
yeah,
nail down that component level. In Dynatrace, right? For each functionality, I can't identify where the trend is. Yes or no? For 504, how many errors are there, and which like for which component? If it is a 400, right? Which component is having more 400? So those things can be filtered out here. That's why we will use Splunk and Dynatrace in parallel. Hope it clarified you,
okay.
right? So in
Yes,
this
it's correct
classes, right,
everything.
you will be now we will be able to see like in this, right, we will be some having something like dashboards. We'll create the dashboards. I will show you like how to create the dashboards and how to create the fields. Okay, and Splunk won't recognize everything as I told, whatever that is being generated is a machine data. So it is not necessary to Splunk for the Splunk to and like discover your all the fields. Let's assume you are having something like in add to cart, there is something like status code. Okay, you may be putting some custom field. Okay, like in logs you may be putting some custom field. Okay, it is not necessary for the Splunk to discover it. So if there are I am sending something like 100 events. Okay, 100 100 bits of information, Splunk can recognize only some 70 or 80 based on its intelligence. For remaining 5 or 10, we have to write fields. We have to define the fields. That we will see. Okay, we'll see like Splunk has alerts capability. Alerts is something like, let's assume I'm getting some, whenever you run the test, the error count is more than some 5,000. Just it will send an alert. Or if the transaction is failed or if the server is going down, okay, Splunk can send alerts. Okay, in production. Okay, on each day. Okay, on each day I want to get the metrics something like this. As a business guy, I want to know like how many people did this change quality, how many did purchase. So this metric on every day I want. Okay, so I can get the data. Let's assume I want to find the response time in the production systems on each day. I can create a report and it will be sent to my mail every day or every week. There is some growth. Let's assume you are monitoring like how many like orders are placed, how many people are adding. Okay, how many consumers are coming. Okay, so you want to monitor that one, right? So I can configure a report for that and it will be sent every week. Like that you will be like, there are so many. Okay, there is something like add-ons and apps. Okay, till now, right, we have discussed about only this one like Linux or Windows. Okay, I want to send the data, I told you like I will be installing a universal forwarder in the Windows or Linux machine and it will be able to send the data, right? So let's assume if it is a DB server, if it is a Jenkins, if it is a Jira, how we will get the data? or if it is something like a firewall. So here there is something like concept of apps and add-ons. Okay, so here you will see one second. So I will go to the older version. There you will understand it better. Okay, so Splunk will be these apps, right? Let's assume if I want to integrate a third-party application. Okay, there is something like there will be something like network app, and the dashboard is readily available for that one. If I install this in my Splunk now, it will be able to get the data from this particular device. Okay, now let's assume what we'll do, right? We'll go with the DevOps. Okay, in DevOps, we are having something like Jenkins. I mentioned, Splunk will be able to send the data from Jenkins. Okay, so here, what is the JVM memory and how many threads are running? So what is the queue size? What is the how many like clients are there for Jenkins? Okay, as I mentioned, so how many successful builds are there? How many failure builds are on a particular day? And if there are any jobs, what are the jobs that gets failed? So these types of pictorial information will be available. If you see the overall trend, like how many are passed, how many are failed. So as part of the improvement, right, we'll try to reduce the failed count. So we'll see. So whenever, so there is one more thing like there are, let's assume for Jenkins, there are some more than 100 slaves or some 10 slaves 20 slaves. So you will know the health status on which day what are up, what are down. Okay, like that, what they will do, right? They will develop some apps and they will put it in the Splunk base. So our job is to install, download it, and integrate with your Splunk and integrate with your Jenkins such that this information will be available. Like what is the JVM memory, what is the queue size, how many nodes are there. Here I am having something like there are something like 150 executors. Okay, and I can get daily stats like on one day how many builds are success, how many builds are there. Let's assume there is a big project. Okay, centralized team, Jenkins centralized team, so they will be producing service to like multiple projects, no, like this we can integrate. So like that, if I want to integrate to Zero or some other, like there are some 10,000 apps. If you say the total count would be something like 10,000, we can't discuss everything, we'll be discussing one or two. Okay, now I told like there will be something like a not JVM, AWS. Okay, now you want to monitor some AWS environment. Okay, so AWS app will be there. So whenever we integrate it, whenever do the configuration, no, so you will be having the dashboards available. So this is being done by the Splunk admin. That's why I mentioned like Splunk can be integrated to any system. Why? Because we are having these apps in place, or you have some Jira. So for Jira, you will be having these add-ons. So in okay, so we will be discussing about these SPL comments. There is a long list actually. So there is a long list. So like we are having only 5 minutes now. So just check this one. How to search and all. Okay, you will be discussing about the charts, time charts, stats, comments, and how to find this like top 10 elements. Okay, top 10 errors or top 10 customers. Okay, let's assume like your environment, uh, you can display something like renaming the field. Okay, let's assume you want to rename your fields, or there is sometimes, right, what happens, right, there won't be any values for the fields. We can add values like null or no data, something like that. So you will have some wide list. Actually we'll discuss, like there are so many things. So if you want to ascending and descending, let's assume I am presenting some report. Okay, it can't be in a zigzag fashion, right? So if I'm sending some report, okay, here either it should be in this ascending order, but my customer asked me to put in this order. There are two views, right? For a customer, if when I created a report, no, I got something like alphabetical order, but my customer, right, he wants something like what is the count based on the actions, based on the events, he want the count, prepare the dashboard. Okay, now we have this one. Okay, 1 second, where is that 400 and all? Yeah, now there are two things here, status and count. My view would be I will be presenting in this ascending order, but my customer asked me like I want this one in this order, or he wants something like top 3 errors, top 4 errors, which caused. Okay, those things can be done using some queries. We will be discussing those stats, sorting the fields, and there are some duplicates, let's assume. Okay, we will try to remove the duplicates. Okay, and there is something like a transaction. Let's assume like you are in upstream you are having some 10 systems, in downstream you are having 5 systems. Let's assume whenever you run a transaction, now logs will be scattered across multiple sources. Now I want to do the tracing for a particular customer ID or particular session ID, so that session ID will be common, okay, across all the events, so I can track my transaction end to end. Okay, so we will be discussing those things. Maybe like any doubts, you can ask your questions. You can unmute and ask your questions. I'm done. Any queries you understood or like?